the more I became confident in certain areas, the less fearful or anxious you would become because you're doing other things. You expose yourself to other things. So functional fitness is one side, becoming more confident and just being able to do something new and different and not having to be perfect at it the moment you went and did it is a big thing. So many people don't want to do something because I'll fail, I'll look stupid, I'll make a mistake. And there's this sense of just sometimes going for it because that's how you learn the best.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here. I'm so excited to be able to share this conversation with you today. I connected with Tambra on Instagram and she is totally walking the walk. She's outdoors, moving, exploring, pushing herself, and she's creating a beautifully intentional life. Tambra Sabatini is a mom, author, and self-publishing consultant, and she calls herself a back-of-the-pack runner turned cross-adventurer. Tambra has tried it all: skiing, kayaking, hiking, biking, backpacking, and now she has turned her hand to motorbike adventuring, which she started in her early 50s. In this conversation, we cover so much: overcoming fear, doubt, and physical limitations, learning new things, doing hard things, pushing yourself, and she tells us all about her awesome motorbike adventures, which includes a bobcat encounter. Of course, Tambra shares tons of tips, strategies, and sage advice, which includes her 3 daily habits. I love Tambra's energy and her never too late attitude. So regardless of your age, gender, or fitness level, if you are looking for a push, some encouragement, and inspiration to try something new, then this is the conversation for you. The show is all about inspiring and supporting people, you, to live longer, stronger, and more intentionally. So as you listen today, please subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with a friend. And remember, you can also now find this episode with video and some fun YouTube shorts on YouTube. YouTube is also a great place to subscribe, leave your questions, comments, and suggestions for topics and future guests. I do personally read everything. And finally, check out the show notes for links, books, and other helpful resources. Whether you are listening for the first time or a regular, please know I appreciate you, I support you, and I thank you so much for listening today. Okay, my friends, here's Tambra. Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to see Tambra. Help me with your last name, Sabatini.
Sabatini, got it.
Sabatini, yes. Welcoming her to the show today.
Thank you.
I saw you a post on Instagram, and we're going to get into your cross adventuring.
Think CrossFit, but cross adventuring.
Yeah, totally caught my attention and reached out and just kind of so glad to connect with you today. So Tambra, tell listeners a little bit about you and your story and kind of how you got to doing what you're doing today.
It's been a fun journey, but it's definitely one I grew up with. I grew up, with my parents, and we would be camping or we'd be canoeing or we'd be out in the woods, and we live right on the edge of a state park. So most of the time when we were bored, we live in the country. So, and I'm actually in my childhood home now. So I'm back here in the same territory that I grew up in, hunting and fishing and camping and backpacking and all those things that we did as kids, and cross-country skiing too. So I'm back here again, and I just grew up with it. But then I moved away, went down to the Washington, D.C. area, worked for the government. I worked for them for 10 years, and then lived in the area about 18 to 20 years, right in that time frame, depending. So, but down there, I still continued to do as much of the same things as I could. I just like to be outdoors. I didn't want to miss a chance to be outdoors. I get a little claustrophobic. I ride home from work, and I drive through Great Falls Park down in Virginia thinking, can't wait to get to the point in my life where I can be back outdoors again, more than, the 9 to 5 kind of routine, plus, hour-long commutes on each end and all that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the cross adventuring. What is that?
and how did you get into that? And tell us more. I'm fascinated.
It is, well, it's kind of interesting because I was doing ultra trail marathons. So we have here in our valley in Oil Creek State Park, we had the Oil Creek 100 trail runs. And I was already very outdoorsy. My partner and I, we were doing things and bringing the girls up with doing all the outdoor stuff. And so we always did this variety of outdoor recreation, just variety. But when I got into the ultra running, um, everybody I met was just into running. That's all they wanted to do was just run, which is great. But I kept thinking, well, we need a little more functional fitness. We need to be able to do this and to be able to do that. We need to be able to lift that, tote that, jump this, haul this, pull this. And it hit me at the time. It was kind of like CrossFit. Like CrossFitters were, lift this, tote that, push that, pull that. I thought we need to be that same way, but with outdoor recreation. And where we're not just running, maybe we're running and kayaking, or maybe we're running, kayaking, bicycling, and since I had grown up doing so many different things, and the partner I had uh, ended up with, um, he also did all these things. So it was great. And then, of course, the girls were still young, so they didn't have a choice. they just got they got dragged along a few times when they were younger, but now they're all about it. But it was just this sense of I didn't want to be locked into any one thing, not because I would be bored or because I would do whatever, but I felt that being intentional, to use a word, about doing more things, I wouldn't overuse my body in one area. I would stimulate my mind in other areas. I would expand my adventure capacity, which was always an exciting thing for me because I like to do different things. And the more we would do, the more stories we had. The more I became confident in certain areas, the less fearful or anxious you would become because you're doing other things. You expose yourself to other things. So functional fitness is one side, becoming more confident and just being able to do something new and different and not having to be perfect at it the moment you went and did it is a big thing.
Yeah.
So many people don't want to do something because I'll fail, I'll look stupid, I'll make a mistake. And there's this sense of just sometimes going for it because that's how you learn the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Just taking a risk, right? Just taking a risk and just trying.
Absolutely.
Just trying. You just gotta try. Yeah.
Well,
Just
everybody
gotta.
gets so ashamed of themselves for not being perfect out the gate.
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm a back of the pack runner. I'm 5 feet tall and curvy. I'm never going to be like a fast runner in any event I ever do. I hold my own, but I'm not ever going to be great. I'm not ever going to come in first. I'm not ever going to be the strongest, the tallest, the leanest, the anything. And we limit ourselves by that because we're always waiting for perfect.
Yeah.
Just do
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
then you build confidence and you build strength along the way. But it's a mental strength, it's a physical strength, it's a resilience. You find yourself in bad situations, you have to push through, whether you like it or
You
not.
you do. You
Yeah,
do.
and then you come
So
out the other side of the story.
right, that's right. So
Yeah.
the adventure trekking is like on a motorbike, right? And you carry your stuff,
Right
right?
now, that's what we're doing a lot of right now. I mean, on our YouTube channel that we eventually put together, we had a website, and then we kind of morphed into more videos. People were doing more with videos, and they wanted to see what we were doing. So I wrote articles, and we did videos, and there were kayaking videos and backpacking videos, and there's some how-to videos, and a lot of it's a journey, and it was really about initially encouraging, particularly women in my case, but
Mm,
others to go do something different. It doesn't have to cost a lot. Gear is available at different cost points. You can accumulate it over time. These pieces shouldn't limit us. And then everybody says, "Oh, you're so adventurous. You must like all that thrilling stuff." I'm like, nothing I do is overly thrilling. Like it's not that out there. It's not thrill seeking kind of adventure. And I'd actually just turned 58 yesterday. So So I'm like,
Congratulations. That's
well,
great,
thank you,
great
thank
news.
you. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I don't ever want to quit. I don't want to have to stop because I've not kept myself active, flexible.
Yeah.
I want to be able to. I used to teach cross country skiing for the middle school kids, and I was shocked that couple years in a row, like these sixth graders couldn't buckle on their shoes, their boots. They were struggling to do that, and I thought, oh my goodness, if sixth graders are struggling with this, and then I also taught adults, and I thought, you all need to be able to do this. These are things you should be able to do. And I used to go out, and the first thing I would teach is we're falling down on the ground because I'm not spending the entire class lesson teaching you how to get back up, no matter your age or size or anything. And, so it's just that
Yeah.
personal resilience that comes together. So it has morphed over the years, the whole idea of what it is, but it fits it because we never stopped doing other things. We might be, so this year we actually took our motorcycles and we took them and we put paddle boards on the back, the inflatable stand-up paddle boards. And then we were able to go to a destination and paddleboard after we rode our motorcycles there and back. So it's just the mixing up of different ways to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
To find a way to experience the outdoors. I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of time. I'm in the woods probably 4 days a week. Doing a hike or a run or a combination. Now I ride the motorcycle there or whatever. But
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we are motorcycling a lot.
Got it. So I do love that combination, right? Like you said, I'm in the woods and I'm biking or running or hiking, or we've got the motorbike thing. Sounds like you camp, right? So you also, you kind of, I'm a backpacker. So pack a pack and you got all your gear and then you just kind of wild camp. Okay.
When we can. Yeah, pretty much. So that's the fun part of it. I've always liked to backpack. So I had all the backpacking gear, and it translated really well to loading it on the motorcycles because it was the same kind of stuff, but we could actually carry a little bit more, which was nice. And we could so our first long distance motorcycle camping, which involved moto camping in wild locations in state and national forest or at campgrounds, but it was on the Cross Pennsylvania Adventure Trail. So we went from the Delaware River in Pennsylvania, the one end of Pennsylvania, clear to here where it actually ended, and then it goes up to Erie as well. But it took us 7 days. We were on very small motorcycles. I got my first motorcycle at age 50, and I'm short, so there's complications with motorcycles for me. And it was very scary. Not that trip, but learning that at 50 years old, and I have lost 2 nephews who both died on motorcycles at young
wow.
age. So my family was not real thrilled that I started doing this. Not at all.
Okay. Yeah. So I just want to pause there for a sec and just say that again, that you started motorbike riding at 50 and you had to kind of learn from scratch all the balance.
I never did anything.
Wow. Wow. That's huge. That's huge.
It is more than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the scariest thing for you? What was the scariest or the most challenging thing about learning to ride a motorbike?
Well, for me, being short, my feet never totally reach anything ever. So when we go on like trails or rough roads, because it's almost all, our focus is not so much on highways. It's actually gravel roads, forest roads. So it's a different type of adventure motorcycling. And so we get into situations where, going through something, or if there's a rut and it's downhill, my feet won't touch. Like if something stops me in front, I'm going over. And at 50 years old and older as a woman, you don't want to fall on the ground.
Yeah.
It hurts. And there's fear. There's fear about trying something that you've never done before, at that level. And now 8 years later, I love it. I absolutely enjoy it. I love the way we can go to new places, I'll say faster to get there to experience it. But there's still fear. When we did that trip 3 weeks ago, there were two spots on there. I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing out here? I'm out of my element. I don't have the experience. I'm not tall enough. I'm not big enough. I'm too old for this. Like, it was terrifying. Two different spots.
Wow. So tell us more. Tell us the story. Tell us what the
Okay,
spots and what happened. Yeah, give
sure.
us a
Sure.
speedy.
So it was in Ohio. We went out on the Great, it's called the GOAT, the Great Ohio Adventure Trail. And it's primarily gravel roads, some really rough sections here and there. So it's almost like single track versus, road. And then it's just a mixture of all of that. So it's through the woods, it's through the farmlands, it's all this. Sometimes you cross creeks, sometimes you go up and down mountains, and there's switchbacks and there's loose gravel. And we've been riding, I guess, on the third day. There are actually three incidences in this trip, but I never dropped the bike at all this week. I was happy about that. But this one downhill section was a switchback coming down, and Ohio had just poured tons of loose limestone on all their roads. No matter which road it was, they just poured tons of loose limestone. And this was a really steep downhill section, and it was larger limestone, and my bike was like, I didn't even have it in a gear. I was just trying to keep it upright, and it was like avalanching underneath me the whole way down, and it was steep. It was very
Wow.
scary. I was just trying to stay upright, not even trying to go forward, and of course he's clear down and gone, and I'm like, you're almost in tears thinking, what am I going to do if I drop the bike here?
Yeah.
There's an edge over here on this side, and it was just one of those situations. It took all of my strength. It took all of my mental fortitude. It
Yeah.
took me just grinding it out and knowing in my own mind, because I've done enough hard things, that I didn't like what I was doing, but I could do it. It might not be pretty. I might
Yeah.
drop the bike and I might need help, but I'm thinking the worst thing that can
Yeah.
happen is I drop the bike. Somebody has to come and help me get it up because the angles and everything else. But you're putting so much effort into it, is exhausting me. But got through that one.
How did you feel afterwards? Right? How did you feel after you got down and you
I
over
was
the
really
challenge? How did you
drained.
feel?
I was really drained, like just very drained feeling. I'm like, and I
Yeah.
told myself, I have to stop for a few minutes. I
Yeah.
just have to stop, get my own composure back, rebuild some strength, get a drink of water because it was really hot. And then, because we still had, that was probably 2 more miles down that hill before we finished that little spot. So it was quite a grind down. And, then you're like, okay, let's keep going. You're good. And nothing went wrong. It was just hard, just
Right.
very hard. And so you just keep going. And now I have a story to tell. That's how I
Yeah.
look at these things. And sometimes it's really difficult. You
But
hit
we
these,
can do hard things, right?
well,
We
trail
can
running is
do.
the same way. When I've done that, you hit these points in it, and I've worked that side of things as both a runner and a volunteer. So I've seen
Mm,
people doing 100-miler at 2 a.m. who don't think they can keep going, and they have another 20 miles or 30 miles to go on them. And, you're hurting, and you're in pain, and you're in agony, and you're questioning your life choices at this moment
that's
at every level possible. You're cold, you're sweaty, you're miserable, and you still make the choice to keep going. Because, and then when you're done, here's the funny thing about trail races, no matter what the distance is, you finish, you're in agony, you might have blisters, you might lose a toenail or two, whatever. But you know what? Within the 24 hours, you're ready to sign back up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's something
So
confident
funny. That's
about it.
so true. Yeah.
And still
I mean,
confident.
in my experience, like you either love it, right? You love it, and 24 hours, like you're thinking about the next race or the next backpacking trip,
Exactly.
or you actually hate it and like you lose a friend and they want to go out with you again and they think you're crazy. So
It's
I think
true.
I think it can work. I think it can work both
It's
ways.
definitely true.
Yeah.
Definitely. For people
Yeah.
who will never do things again because the level of push was too hard for them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so much you learn about yourself out there.
So much. I mean, you've mentioned so much. You mentioned kind of confidence, self-esteem, building mental health, mental strength, physical strength, resiliency.
Right.
You mentioned so much today about, what this has added to your life.
And without seeking that adventure, none of those things would be there because we like our comfort. I have women all the time who ask me for the moto camping. You camp on the ground in the woods. You might not shower for 3 days if depending on where you're going. Like, it is what it is. But then I really appreciate my hot shower, my electricity, my bed, my refrigerator.
Right, that's right.
It's
And
grateful.
I'm really resonating with the backpacking thing because that's what it's like, right? You're on the trail for 3 days, 5 days, no
Absolutely.
shower, you're super uncomfortable, you're sleeping in a tent, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the coming home, right? It really does help you really appreciate the small things and your loved
Absolutely.
ones, the warm shower and the comfy bed. And it also helps, at least me, helps me realize I can do more and live with a lot less.
Right. And that's actually why I like the motorcycle camping as much as any kind I've ever done. You can go car camping, or you can do this, you can do that, or you can go to the motel or the Airbnb. But similar to backpacking, and I've done plenty of that as well. I've taken my kids and my nieces and everything out. But I like the simplicity of either backpacking or the moto camping. I like that everything is pared down to such a simple level. I don't take anything extra with me. It's just simple so I can enjoy the adventure of what I'm doing. I can enjoy the scenery. I can enjoy uh, experiencing, nature, the wildlife I might encounter, all those different pieces. I just like that it's just pared down, really focused in a way that you don't get when there's all the extra stuff around you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, somewhere along the line, you said you talk about adventure being ageless.
Yes.
So tell us more about that and your thoughts about age and kind of
Mm-hmm.
never, being never too late. I'm a big believer in it's never too late. Tell us about that.
Exactly. Um, I think most people, I actually, I'm afraid she'll hear this, but I'm going to say this anyways. I have someone in my life who once said at 40 that she was done. She could just put her feet up and no longer worry about this, that, and the other. I'm thinking, there's a long life ahead of you, honey. I, and this, and that was 20 years ago now, I think, or maybe 15. But I'm looking at her and thinking she's in pain, she's miserable, she's not physically capable of doing anything. And you don't
Mm,
realize it, but those little choices we make early on will limit our ability to keep moving and going and doing. And I say ageless because I with my own daughters, they were outdoors from weeks of age, and they're out there now doing it on their own. And now I'm still continuing, and we encounter people all the time doing the different things we do who are much older than we are, and it's so exciting that they're still doing it. But if you're not doing it, you won't be able to do it. You have to keep your strength up. You have to keep your resilience up. You have to, you know. So when we started, the motorcycle I had was an automatic motorcycle. So it had no gears, and I had never shifted anything in my life. Not a car. I never driven standard of anything. I mean, I did when I was a kid, and that didn't go well. So I was a little nervous about learning to shift. Um, and I actually went ahead and took my motorcycle license and went to like a 3-day class to get my motorcycle license. And from the beginning of the class to the end of the class, I had to learn to shift. So not just learning how to ride and do everything they were teaching me, I had to learn how to shift. And I passed the class, got my motorcycle license, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'd been riding on a permit for like 2 years before that. So I finally did that, learned to shift in the class. Still didn't have a a shifting motorcycle. So we went, and I thought, I just need something I can toss around. So he surprised me with a smaller, like 100cc bike. So it was a little shifter, had a little kickstart, but it was something I could stand over, stand up over, throw around a bit, really learn how to maneuver something. And we would take it up to the Allegheny National Forest trails and ride the trails. And I just got comfortable just riding in a really more aggressive way. I mean, it was a little scary because there's rocks and roots and trees, but then another bike opened up, and I said, we think we can do that one, which is still a small bike by most people's standards because it's a TW 200, and but it's a great little bike, and we've done 2 really long moto camping trips on them just for fun. And now I've actually moved up to a bigger bike, a 300. But it's always a compromise for me being 5 feet tall. So why did I push through? Is because I knew there was fun there, fun and adventure, and the ability to take the best of what I felt was the best of the backpacking and camping side that I so much enjoyed, and have the ability to go do more exploring, to do more adventuring, to see more places, to get into places that I couldn't just get to easily. So I really wanted that side of it. I had no desire to be like a Harley chick on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's not my world. But I always tell the guys who are interested in trying to get their girlfriends or wives interested, or their daughters or anything.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get them a nice little bike, take them on the forest road. They'll fall in love with it because they're out in the woods. You stop at a stream, you hike down to a waterfall, you get out in the woods, and the whole time you're going, you're seeing deer, you're seeing turkeys and little baby turkeys. I love it.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
stop and have a little picnic, right? I mean, it's
We do.
beautiful. And you
Yeah.
can cover, I mean, you can cover so much ground, I would imagine, too,
Oh,
right?
it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I love that side of it. And we just stop and explore. We do geocaching along the way, and just a lot of fun different aspects to it. Like I told you earlier, now we might throw the stand-up paddle boards on the back and go for that. So there's just different ways to get outside.
I'm guessing the chances are that you're listening today because, like me, you are all about creating a longer, stronger, more intentional life. And did you know that there is a great way to take one more step towards that goal? By signing up for Living Big Mindfully's community news. That's right. So why sign up? Well, you'll get new podcast episodes delivered straight into your inbox. You'll be the first to hear about exclusive offers, retreats, and community events, all designed to help you stay stronger for longer. And as a therapist with a women's health and longevity certification, I share all the great stuff I am learning. From the latest in muscle health to brain health to emotional fitness and well-being. Basically, all the tools, support, and encouragement you need to thrive and squeeze every ounce out of this precious life. So how do you sign up? It's simple. Head over to katechampionauthor.com, click on the community news link, and let's get connected today. Oh, and just so you know, it's completely free. We never share your information, and you can unsubscribe at any time. So take, please, this one step for yourself. Go to katechampionauthor.com and sign up today. I cannot wait to see you there. Okay, let's get back to the show.
So I mentioned a while back that you were a little scared, right? You've mentioned a couple of times you've been kind of scared, like kind of going down that steep incline, learning how to shift the gears. Fear comes up. Fear is a thing.
Oh,
So
always.
how do you work with kind of fear and anxiety, the worries, the sometimes it's terrifying, right? How do you work through that? How do you work through that?
A big part of that has come around that I know, like I said before, I know that I've done things that are hard. So now I'm thinking I'll just push through the hard. I won't like it, but I'll push through the hard. I don't like being afraid, but I'll push through the fear. I can't say that I've ever quit on anything. There is that phrase of "do it afraid," and I really do believe that. I really do believe that we have all those anxieties. We're afraid of our shadows. We're afraid of getting hurt, and sometimes, and actually, one of the things I always do, I've been in situations where I think I just have to take a deep breath. You know,
Hmm.
you literally just have to push down that frantic feeling that can come up sometimes, and just start taking a few deep breaths and just focus where you want to be. Where do I want to be with it? And it, you know, that could be a physical sense. Do I want to be over there, or do I want to be over here? Or it could be an emotional sense of, you know, squashing that fear, but doing that maybe through, for me, for sometimes I have to just take that deep breath. Sometimes I have to
Yeah.
be really quiet and really focused, but I have to just stop for a little bit. And I may not be able to stop the action of the activity, because to stop
Hmm.
it might be disastrous. So it is just in the moment of that, just taking that deep breath. So here's another encounter recently that I had a lot of fear in. Um, I actually had a super up close and personal wildcat bobcat encounter about a month ago. And I'd been out on a hike in the park, was coming back. I thought, I'm just going to sit on this rock. I had been just busy season. I thought, I just need to sit here and relax for a little bit. It's a beautiful day. I hadn't had a chance out for a week probably to really get out, and that's my space. You know, I want to be outside, and I've had lots of bear encounters, and I have wildlife encounters all the time, and I've seen the bobcats out in the park before, pretty close. But as I'm sitting there, there's a ridge line in front of me, and this bobcat comes up over, a big bobcat, didn't see me, and is looking down at the ground doing his thing, and he's meandering towards me, and he's within about 8 feet. It was that close. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay. So I got him. I'm like, I'm going to take a picture because I thought I'm not missing the picture. But I hadn't moved it, but I didn't want to scare it, you know. So I'm like, take this deep breath, and I whispered at it. I thought, quiet is what I need right now. Frantic is not going to solve the situation. It might make it worse. So I'm like, I said, hey, you're a little too close now. And the picture I got, he's looking right at me, and you're like, oh, he heard that. And he looked at me, and I got the picture, and he scampered away. And everybody says, why did you freak out? Thinking, because that's not what you do in a fear situation. And a lot of people want to play, women especially, want to give into that emotional rise immediately and kind of flail about and be verbal. And instead, I think that if there's one thing I've learned in the woods, in all the pieces that have come together in that sense, is be quiet. Just be quiet. And if I can be quiet and not outwardly expressing it and be quiet, everything else will be quiet. You know, if I had yelled at him, he might have really freaked and attacked me, because I actually have a cousin who was attacked by one in West Virginia once. So I'm like, I'm not going
Hmm.
to do that. I knew better than to like scare it.
Hmm.
But it's learning in those really fearful situations to calm ourselves, to calm our mind, to calm our heart, to calm our energies a little bit. And the first thing there is take that deep breath. You know,
Hmm.
really, really slow down a minute and not let the emotion be the first thing that comes out, not let this instantaneous response. And I think that's probably the most beneficial thing in life. Just take that deep breath. Really
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
force yourself in the midst of it to
Yeah.
assess, not just react.
That's huge. That's huge. So what happens next? He kind of
He
went
turned
his,
away. Yep.
and you carried on the trail and
I did. I'm like, I think I'm gonna keep moving. And I went back out, and one of the rangers was there. I'm like, you guys see what I just saw? So
that's
I've had some other fun encounters, but they weren't like that kind of close confrontation with them. And
yeah.
I actually almost body slammed a bear one other time on a trail run training. So I've had some, and he growled, he like roared at me, growled at me. So I've had a lot of fear moments in my encounters over the years. And,
Yeah.
and, and it does help. The more you do anything,
That's right, right? It's like a muscle. It's like a
it is.
muscle, right? The more you can build that muscle, I mean, it's kind of, you're talking about resiliency, really, right? The more
Yeah.
you work through challenges, the more muscle you can build around that, the more resilient and able you become to face and move through these challenges. Yeah.
That's so key. That
Yeah.
is so key. And we need to teach our children that, along the way. They need to learn that from young ages. Like, life's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge, and you can go further than you think you can, and you can
Yeah.
push harder than you think you can. And that's actually been a big lesson I've always taught my two daughters, and it's gone well for them with that, and they've walked through crazy stuff, and
Hmm.
and they've learned that the best therapy is to get outdoors and go on a walk too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big part of my mental health as well. So let's talk for a moment about, staying vital, staying engaged, like really kind of living intentionally. You mentioned, the difference between kind of thrill seeking and
Right.
just living intentionally. So let's talk to listeners
Sure.
about that a little bit.
Sure. I'm not trying to promote a book here or anything, but a couple years ago, I did write like a 28-day challenge, um, aging with intention and vitality, and it was really crucial to me to see that. My mom died at 60 from cancer,
Hmm.
so I've always wanted to be strong and have health and resilience and all these things we talk about. But I've always wanted to be intentional about what I chose to do in life. And I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, the first things I did probably 20 years ago now was I thought, what are the things I'd like to be and do over the next 20 years? And I thought, okay, I'd like to be an author. I'd like to be an artist. I'd like to be athletic, and I'd like to be an adventurer. So I started kind of writing that down for myself. And it's like, you feel corny when you do stuff like that, like it's woo woo silly. It's really not. I just fulfilled every one of those pieces, and we're not intentional enough. And I'm almost at the stage now where I'm thinking, what are the next 20 years? But I was intentional for those specific 20 years to develop that and to know that to succeed in those areas meant that I needed to be intentional about how I wanted to accomplish those. They don't just happen.
Hmm.
I can't go out and run a 50K or a 100K and have it happen if I'm not being intentional about my training, if I'm not being intentional about my nutrition, if I'm not being intentional about my sleep. You know, to do that, I had to be very intentional. To be an author, I had to be very intentional about doing these things. Each of these pieces, you know, required a different piece of skill sets to keep building and growing on. And that's an intentional process. And sometimes everybody, what are the not a storyboard, vision board.
Hmm.
I remember one time years ago I did a vision board, and so I put different pieces up on that. If I went back and looked at them now, I haven't looked at them in years, but usually about once a year for all those main years, I was kind of putting those pieces together of here's what I wanted to be, here's what I wanted to accomplish, and not specific in the sense I want to be this, that, or the other. It was this, I wanted these experiences in my world,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're not experience, they're more experiences that in my case, I wanted to model for my daughters, but also I just wanted to enjoy them. These are things I wanted to accomplish.
Hmm. Yeah. Things that you really felt drawn towards, right? Really,
Right,
really felt like, well, aligned with kind of you, who you are, your values, who you are as a woman. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I grew up in the country, so we grew up raising and growing most of our food. So I knew that food for me, nutrition was very, I don't want to say farm based, but it was very close to the land. We did our own, we grew our own gardens and we canned those foods or froze them. We did hunting, we fished, and so we did those. And the family around us all had. We actually grew up kind of, aunts and uncles and grandparents, everybody all together. And so it was
Yeah.
nice. And we shared chores too, in that sense. Like they would raise beef, or they would raise chickens, or we would raise the pigs. You know, so all those pieces, we always had really good food because that's what we raised. When I left home, I didn't have all that anymore. So when I first got going, just a young girl out there in the world, you're not really sure, and I'd gone from very rural to very metropolitan, so it was a
Hmm.
different world. But then as I started to get reestablished, I found things. The farm markets were close by, and then as I got a house, I was able to grow some things in the suburbs, even whatever. But it was always sourcing out the best forms of nutrition, the best foods that I could find, that weren't processed or anything like that. Because my poor kids, to this day, I never fed them a Pop Tart. They always give me grief for never feeding them cereal or Pop Tarts.
Probably healthier for them.
They're very healthy young ladies.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that day, 28-day challenge. Tell me that title again.
Okay,
Say that.
it's actually, I made the title way too long, but I summed it up with how 3 daily habits will help you age with intention and vitality. And on the little side is Adventures Ageless. But it's a 28-day challenge to reset your habits, age with intention, and increase vitality.
Okay, so I love that.
It's really long.
28 days challenge to age with intention and
increase vitality.
Vitality. Got it. Got it.
I'll
So
send you a copy.
please, and I'll put a link in I'll put a link in the show notes too. So tell listeners a little bit about, give them some tips and strategies. I mean, let's dive into some of those practical tips and strategies.
Oh, let's see. It's been a while since I've dug into it even. I got a little busy this year, but I'm like, this is what I was really trying to get people to understand. And, who are we and where we're going, and how can we make those changes in an intentional way to move us forward in a positive direction?
Yeah.
Most people don't take the time to think how what they're doing today is going to affect them 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And I've had that long-term mindset as I watched my mother suffer, and just like what I'm doing today and what my girls are going to do tomorrow. Like, I really wanted to put those pieces together. And we have distractions, and we tend to be, people tend to be either distracted or bored or both. People who are usually bored tend to be distracted, and then they also look for entertainment rather than creating an intentional world experience or a life experience. So I walk people through like the application, how they can apply it, what their mission is, to identify like the lifestyle actions that are currently aging and destroying your vitality, and then what 3 habits can you do every day to kind of bring this together. So each day, take an action each morning, and it's 28 days, so it's kind of a journaling kind of process with worksheets where you work through. And I pull up some old time authors. One of them was Orison Swett Martin, who's an American author about achieving success in our personal lives. And he wrote in the one on the victorious attitude, it's about how our thought leads us. If it's an old age thought, old age must follow. If it's a youthful thought, a perennial young life thought, a thought of usefulness and helpfulness, the body must follow. It must correspond. So old age begins in our mind, and it's just like my friend at 40 who said, I'm done. I can just put my feet up now and not do anything. But when you get out of the habit of being young, when you get out of the habit of playing and having fun and finding joy in the exploration and in the discovery and in the intentional creation of your life, you start aging really fast. It's kind of terrifying how fast people age. And that's the key behind vitality, is we want to really build that inner energy and life force that it keeps, when we walk into a room, somebody goes, hey, they're a little bit different. And guess what? You probably have a different conversation mode than, what's on TV or who's doing what or whatever. You're like, hey, I was out in the woods and I saw this. Or, hey, a bunch of us, I now have like 4 ladies that I've gotten into motorcycling. We all go motorcycling now, in the woods. So it's a contagious spirit that you can build around you that's a creative spirit, and people think, oh, arts and crafts are creative. No, our lives are creative.
Okay. So let's just say that again. Like, our lives are creative. I mean, we are created to be
we create. Are created to create. Yeah. To be
and creative. Explore, right? Explore.
Absolutely.
And, like, touch and feel and adventure 100%.
And that's what we've all pushed away for the last 50 plus years, really, if not longer, is that creative side that just wants to explore, to have an adventure, to feel that life stirring up within us, and then the joy that bubbles out of it. It just, you can't help. There's
You
always,
can't.
yeah, you can't. There's always a joke in our videos on the YouTube channel about, yep, it's another stone wall, and yep, it's so pretty, and yep, this is like, I love all this.
Yeah,
It
that's
makes
so
me
funny.
happy. Everything, when you're out there, you're experiencing this joy of just experiencing.
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
jaded
The
otherwise.
wonder, right? For me, it's the wonder, it's the awe, the AWE, right? It's the
Yeah,
like just so connected with just something so much bigger. I mean, it is a wonderful thing. And I love what you said about old age begins in the mind. I think
yeah.
that's so true.
It is
So true.
so true. And I've seen it in so many people, and they
So
take on
sad.
it. It breaks my heart. They're like, and somebody will say to me, "Oh, you're doing all this." I'm like, yeah, but you could be too. I
Mhm.
I have no special skills. I'm just an average short woman, and it's actually a deficit to be an average short woman out there. It's not as easy, but yet if you're not grasping for life, here's another quote I like. Your capacity to live a life of purpose is directly linked to your ability to be healthy, fit, and energetic. And there's no excuse to not want to be the best version of yourself possible in all possible areas. And people give up on that. They want somebody to give them a pill, or they want somebody to give them a treatment, or they want somebody to give them, to talk endlessly about their woes. Thinking that doesn't solve anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we really need to move forward and think forward of what we want to create for ourselves. We
Yeah.
can't change the past, and there are years where, like you wake up every day and you think, I don't know how I can keep going, but you do. We
Yeah.
just do. And when you start filling the other end of that in with seeking after creating an intentional life, not to use those words too much, but there has to be a desire to want to move forward in that way more than
Yeah.
you want to keep rehashing and rehearsing the past woes that hold you down to who you are. You'll never get
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned 3 habits. What are 3 habits you do every day? What are the three? I call them essentials, right? What are your
yeah.
three daily essentials for
My
you?
I'm gonna go back to the beginning here so I find how I wrote that out there. Daily habit number one. Well, first, okay, I'll give them in order to you. Replacement of power of repetition. That's where we just talked about overcoming those patterns of mindset where I want to rehearse what's bad and repeating what I see as good about my life. This is good. I go outside. This is good. This is good. I'm moving forward. You move from a negative, depressed victim to a positive, vibrant creator. So that's reframing my thoughts every morning into that. Like if I've had a bad day before, a bad night, I'm like, today's a new day. I can't change anything about yesterday necessarily. Today I can make a better choice. So it's that replacement power, that putting the right creative thought forward instead of the negative thought. The second one that I wrote out in here is be the hero of your body. We're all looking for a hero, but choose your food intentionally for your greatest nutrition. Build muscle intentionally. Not be afraid of being strong. Knowing that if we're not strong, we're going to be exceedingly weak all the time. Embrace your day. Whatever your morning routine is. I like, even before I get out of bed, I do a little spiritual exercise in my head. It's like I collect that thought and I bring that together before I even get out of bed. And it's like 30 seconds. It's not complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then that includes, bringing in whatever physical health habits you do, whether it's exercise or strength and fitness or a walk or whatever. And for me, that's something that usually is afternoons, evenings, mornings are a little
Mhm.
bit busier and stuff. And then habit number 3 is become forest minded. And what
Okay.
that
Tell me more.
means, yeah, forest minded is where, and I have worksheets and everything, but forest minded, so everybody's familiar with, what's it called, forest breathing, the Japanese thing here. this is, I always call this is my wheelhouse. This is where I find that nature is really the best antidote for everything that ails us. Like just getting out there. Um, and it's like, and I like to go alone mostly. I always have people who want to go with me. I'm like, I'll give them one afternoon a week occasionally, but I'm like, I really want to be alone out here. And a lot of women are afraid to be alone in the woods. And my woods are pretty remote. And sometimes you have issues out there that you got to be aware of, whether it's animals or strange people. But I need that time alone. And it's not even just the decompression side of it, it's the refreshing side of it. It's the healing power of nature that just, whether it's grounding yourself and putting your feet in the stream or in the dirt. Sometimes I'll be on a hot hike and I'll go just take my shoes off and put them in the stream, let it flow over me, whatever. But the Japanese did a really cool thing. Back in 1990, they did a study in the Japanese ancient forest, and he was testing the concept of the forest bathing, I'm sorry. And it was the concept of Shinrin Yoku. Everybody sees about that. We see something that was coming around. But he actually found that 40 minutes of walking in the cedar forest was associated with improvements in mood and vitality. It lowered the cortisol, it lowered the stress hormone that is highly aging, and it just increased our immunity. It increased all these pieces about ourselves. And it's on this level that we don't even realize. Like if you go through, for example, a little forested area where there's ferns and running water and hemlock trees around you, the oxygenation, the ozone, all of that within there is doing things that we don't even realize. We just think we feel really good when we're in those spots, but there's actually scientific background for why we feel good in those spots. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, we had all these sanitariums and different things and health spas, and people would leave the cities and they'd either go to the ocean or they'd go to the forest and the mountains and immerse themselves in these environments. And it wasn't just to get away from a smoggy city. It's actually a scientific basis where the elements of that are very healing to us. And like once you get addicted to that, you never want to quit.
Yeah. I mean, it's powerful medicine, right? I mean, it's really
absolutely.
powerful medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
To share the natural world, getting out there, getting your feet in the ground.
Exactly.
Been a huge part of my personal healing process and
Mm-hmm.
huge part of my mental health as well. And it sounds like kind of like that for you as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's a crucial part of who we are. I think we were created to be out in that environment as much as possible.
Yeah.
And just, to feel it, to explore it, to touch it, to see it, all those sensory aspects. Otherwise it's a plastic world.
Yeah, I think you're right. We weren't created to be on tech and on screens and sitting and
No,
in cubicles and
no,
we
not at
just
all.
weren't created for that. Yeah. So I love those three habits. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of share with listeners before I ask you the famous sage advice question?
Let's see here. I do think, and I mentioned it earlier, especially when you're looking to be very intentional about your life and how you want to do it, I do think a writing process, in the process of journaling, vision boarding, any of those pieces, whether it's, cutting out pictures or whatever it is, whatever it takes for you to put together the intentional vision of what you want your life to be. I think we need to do that periodically. I don't think it has to be a daily thing, but even reviewing for this, some of the things I thought, oh, I forgot I looked at that. Oh, look, I fulfilled that. I look back at some of my journal notes on different things and other things over the years and thinking, this is kind of cool. I actually accomplished that, or I did this, or, I shared that with somebody else. And you realize if I hadn't put it down, I'm too distracted now to realize I put it down. But the sense of fulfillment from looking back at that is pretty powerful. You realize you're moving forward way more than you think you are some days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So write it down.
Yeah, I'm connecting with that. I remember last year, I think my son bought me the National Geographic, like kind of forest, like the
Sure.
book of all the national forests. And I was sitting there with my husband. And it's like, okay, I've been there and I've been there. And oh, look, I've been there too, right?
Yeah.
But that I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm saying that because
No.
I set my intention, right? I
Mm,
wanted to do, all the national forests in every state and do kind of like an epic hike in every state.
right.
And when I go through that book, it's like, oh my gosh, and you see you've been to 10, 15, 20 things, and you haven't really even thought about it, but your
Right.
energy somehow has kind of
Exactly.
marched you in that direction. I mean, it is a thing. It is a
It is
thing.
very much a thing, and people
Yeah,
don't realize that. But when you write it down and then come back to it, even 5 or 10 years later, in some cases, or
yeah.
longer, I've looked at back at journals and been shocked
Hmm.
at areas that I had entirely forgotten about, and and
Yeah.
and I fulfilled them. So
Yeah. It's a really cool feeling. That's so good
it is.
for you. That's
Thank you.
lovely.
It is fun.
So, final question. Like, if you had
Mhm.
one piece of sage advice to share with listeners about living intentionally, what would that be, Tambra?
I definitely think for me, and all the pieces that I've explored and done, helped people with, and done myself, I did think about this, and I thought, don't get stuck on perfect.
Mm,
Aim for good enough. Jump off that cliff and aim for good enough. Um, if we wait for perfect, we'll never accomplish anything. We'll never try anything. And I know I work with a lot of authors. I help them publish their books, and I know many who will never publish because it's not good enough. It's not perfect. But the ones that I can convince them it's good enough, they're thrilled and they can go forward to the next one. But if you're stuck on perfect, whether it's the perfect, I have to. Years ago, one of my young daughters didn't want to try something. Maybe it was downhill skiing, but she didn't get it perfect the first time, and so she was afraid to do it again. I'm like, no, that's how you learn. Is we're imperfect, but you get strength and you build confidence and you build courage and you all of this comes together from going for good enough rather than perfect. So jump off the cliff of good enough.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. And yeah, it definitely resonates. And people seem to think, you take from step A, you somehow magically get to step Z in one big stride, but it takes failure, right? Failure is just another way to learn, right? You got to fall
Absolutely.
down, you gotta skin your knee, you got to,
Yep.
you just got to go through all the little steps. It's part of
There's
that
gonna be some
process.
pain.
Yeah, right, right.
So,
So where can people find you? Where, if they have questions or want to reach out, tell us where people can find you.
I obviously have a lot of personal Facebook and Instagram pages, but our best place right now is our cross adventuring YouTube channel. And that's where we share mostly our videos and our adventures and the different things we've been doing. Um, so from there, if we have anything extra share, we usually post that in a link in those sections. So that seems to be our most effective mode right now.
Great. Then I will definitely put that website, that YouTube channel link in the show notes.
Sure,
If you
that's
send
great.
me a link for that book, that 8-day challenge, I'll definitely put that in the show notes as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you. It's fun to share.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Jay. It's just so
Thank
cool.
you.
Again, I mean, it's kind of like an example of what we were talking about, right? I saw that post, I reached out, kind of made it happen.
Exactly.
And we've just had this beautiful conversation, and now this
Oh,
conversation is going out to the world. It's
so much
just
fun.
you gotta try. You
Absolutely.
gotta
And you
try.
were very patient waiting all these months while I had so much going on. But you put it out there and I'm thinking, I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. So that's
Yeah, yeah. So
thank
maybe
you very
patience
much.
is a part of it. Patience, right? People have to have a little bit of patience too, and just when the
Persistence,
time is right.
persistence, patience and persistence.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a great note to end it on. Patience and perseverance. Thank you, Tambra. You've been
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. This was fun. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you and your time. Remember that I do love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Grab your free hiking guide, share your favorite episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.